What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to talk about why I will never date American women again. I think a lot of people like to fetishize foreign women as being better. Women in other countries are not better, they are just different. So I wanted to talk about the reasons why I do not like dating American women. Starting with number one, the overall attitude. I think feminism has crept up so much into our society that a lot of women think that they are better than men. I don't think men and women are different in value, we just are good at very different things. It's always been frustrating to me because I felt like women in the US expect all the privileges that come with a man, but want society to treat them still like a woman. For example, this is a very controversial statement. I think that men should be able to hit women. Now, before you get super mad about this, women want the same exact treatment as men. If they cross over a line or if they hit the man first, the man should have the right to hit the woman back. This is a perfect example of gender double standards. Let's say we have two guys in the room. One of the guys starts acting out like crazy, saying a bunch of crazy stuff. It's only a matter of time before things get violent. You can't really say the same thing for an interaction between a man and a woman. The woman can insult a man super crazy and the man is literally not allowed to do anything, because if the man lays a finger on her, all of a sudden it's domestic abuse, and then they will almost always put the blame on the man over the woman. Seeing the unequal treatment of the genders in the US has always frustrated me, and I think it frustrates a lot of men. There's not a clear line between what a man is supposed to do and what a woman is supposed to do. But I think that makes things very confusing, because what are the exact values that we're supposed to follow? But when a society supports a specific gender role narrative, it's easier to find your place as a man or a woman because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to go by what the society expects from you as a man. And this is something I really relate to as a Chinese guy, because the more I spend time in Eastern countries, which is essentially like everything Germany, Austria, eastwards towards Asia, they have quite defined gender roles. Based on how I was raised from my father, my Chinese father, those values really resonate with me a lot more. One of the questions that I get asked the most is, Wesley, where's the best place to find good traditional women? And if anyone were to tell you a straight up answer just from that one question, they are BSing you. There are so many factors that come into play. One of the biggest factors is cultural fit. For me, I'm American, yes, but I'm Asian first. Trying to find someone that connects with those Asian values have been people from Asia, eastern part of Europe, and even certain parts of Africa, more of the Christian-based countries. So it's very hard to give you a general answer. You just have to figure out what works the best for you. If you are stuck on this question, feel free to reach out to me for a consultation. And after hearing your story and your situation, I can give you the best answer to what country may be the best for you in terms of dating. Even though Europeans, especially in like North Europe, are generally taller, it doesn't feel like height matters as much to dating as it does in the US. I feel like the fact that I'm not 6 feet generally hinders my dating success, and in other places in the world, they don't really care about height that much because all the other things are a lot more important. I don't know what it is about American society that pushes this whole entire 6 feet thing, even though 6 feet people are only like 10% of the population. So on top of the ridiculous height standard that a lot of the women seem to have, they also have a very high income standard. It's interesting because, you know, all over social media, people always show that the women want 100K, 200K, really drastic income standards. That actually seems to be quite consistent with the people that I interact with in everyday life. And it does seem that in many other places in the world, yes, they want the man to make money, but it's more about stability than making a certain dollar amount. If you guys are looking for general dating coaching, my man Mike has you covered. He teaches you dating from all aspects, having a better digital footprint, approach. He's worked with thousands of people over the course of his career, and he's even working with my cousin now, so I can personally vouch for him. If you guys are interested in setting up a free consultation with him, I'll leave a link to that in the pinned comment down below. So another problem that I have with American women is the obesity issue. It seems that women of all races in the US end up getting obese at some point. Also, a society that kind of encourages this whole body positivity thing. Doesn't matter how obese you are, you can't say anything to me. In many other countries in the world, women know that being obese is unacceptable. If you go to places like Colombia or Vietnam, here in Eastern Europe, the women just take care of themselves because they understand that men care about beauty. General infrastructure in the US is designed for cars in mind, which leads to our sedentary lifestyle. And that's why I don't blame Americans, at least for the lifestyle part, because the lifestyle is made for us to gain weight. Just because it's not our fault doesn't mean it's not our responsibility to be in shape. But when you combine that with a culture that also promotes obesity, obesity. It's something that I really don't like, and I don't want to have to fight with my woman for her to be in shape. Something that I find very important is just the overall view towards promiscuity. In the US and many places in Latin America, promiscuity seems to be encouraged a lot more. Most Polish people are in long-term relationships, and a lot of the girls that I've talked to, the body counts are generally not that high. Compared to the US, where just overall sexual liberation is a lot more promoted. And I think university culture actually has a lot to do with this. Something that I really like about the whole Eastern European vibe is that generally the women here are not easy at all. It's quite common where they won't have sex with you on the first few dates. I'm seeing a Polish girl now. We didn't even kiss until we hung out maybe like 6 or 7 times. So it's just like a completely different ball game here. Whereas in the US, you have sex first and then everything else comes afterwards. But in places in the East, like the Philippines or Asia or here in Eastern Europe, there's a lot more value on sex, and promiscuity in general is a lot more frowned upon. Growing up in the US, I was obviously taught that you should not care about a woman's past. She did all of those things when she was young, but that doesn't mean anything now. That was essentially denying my masculine instincts, because if I'm being honest, a woman's past does bother me a lot. And if I know that a woman's been with X guy or a lot of guys before me, this is gonna sound controversial. I think it really cheapens her. Meeting 18-year-olds that have a body count of 5 or more is quite normal in America. I think if you were to see it at a surface level, people would say that the women here are hotter and they expect less. I don't think that's an accurate summary. I think the more accurate summary is that they are a little more realistic with their expectations. Something about American culture is that they push, especially towards the women, you're a 10 girl, it doesn't matter how you look, what you did in the past, your behavior, all that nonsense. And we're just supposed to accept you as you are at the end of your life. Whereas here, the culture and everything supports that the women are very long-term focused. They're constantly thinking about relationship. And because there's so much competition with how attractive the women are just generally all over the world, all of that combined makes people have a lot more realistic expectations. And I think that comes from both the man's side and the woman's side. I just think culturally, I don't have a strong match with American women. In my travels, I noticed that the women that I feel the most culturally aligned with are Eastern European, Asian, or women that are half Asian, half European, because we grew up very similarly. I'm full Chinese, but my parents were raised in the Philippines, but then I was raised in the US. So we just have this whole mix of a bunch of different cultures in there, and I can't really identify closely with any of those cultures, if I'm being honest. I kind of have a little bit of everything. And that's why I really enjoy women who have parents from 2 different backgrounds, because they understand what it's like growing up with 2 different cultures and not connecting to any one of them fully. Think about this a lot, like the difference of Eastern masculinity versus Western masculinity. Eastern masculinity is a lot more humble. It's about being a protector, a provider, being stable. Whereas I feel like Western masculinity is a lot more chauvinistic, something you'll see very common in Black culture, Latin culture, and American culture. Think like Floyd Mayweather or Conor McGregor. As an Asian person, that's so heavily against my nature, but I don't know how to explain it. Trying to brag about my accomplishments just feels so unnatural to me, whereas in other cultures like the US, it feels like that kind of behavior is totally rewarded. Geeks, bro. So one of the big things for me is that there's a very big difference in the way that I'm treated as an Asian person in the US versus how I'm treated in other places in the world. Asian men in the US were kind of a joke. You're at the bottom of the totem pole. If you've seen the studies, Black women and Asian men are the least desired. That's because we've had so many negative stereotypes thrust upon us for years, that we are beta, submissive, feminine, dorky, small penises, all these things that have added up. This overall sentiment that Asian men are inferior. I had several experiences where women would not date me just because of the fact that I was Asian, and it's vastly different to my experience in other places in the world. Latin America, obviously back in Asia, because we have home court advantage, but specifically being here in Eastern Europe, Asian men do very well here. And I don't know if we're seen higher because of the exotic factor and everything. We don't have any of the negative stereotypes that come with us growing up in the US. So around the world, Asian men are seen as studious, responsible, financially stable, emotionally stable. It's hard for a lot of Americans to change that chip that Asians are inferior. I know I don't like saying it that way. I think a lot of Asian guys can back me up on this whole entire feeling. One of the common things that my European friends give me shit about is my lack of world knowledge about politics and history. And I think that directly stems from my American education, first off. This is something that I really notice about talking with Americans versus people all around the world. Because the US is so geographically isolated from everybody else, it feels like we just focus on ourselves and we don't really have knowledge of other cultures, other languages. I feel like the conversations that I have with most Americans are quite superficial, usually focuses around career, about gossip. And when I talk to Europeans, we'll have deep conversations about philosophy, about religion, about culture. It does seem like there's quite a difference in the way that Europeans generally behave and carry themselves compared to Americans. And I think it is fair that generally it's a person by person basis. Obviously the title of the video is a little bit clickbait. If I do connect with somebody who happens to be American, I'm not gonna say no, but the likelihood of that is quite low, especially after all of my travels and seeing how women behave in other places in the world. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you later. Peace.